Hello and welcome. Today we are talking about interest. But I want you to forget everything you think you know about it. Bank rates, credit card statements, all of that. We're going to get to the heart of what interest really is. It's the price we pay for a promise. And it all starts with a very human problem.
So let's just ask the big question right up front. Where does interest actually come from? Well, to figure this out, we're not going to start with central banks or complicated financial markets. No, we're going to start with something much, much simpler, a basic exchange between two people. Because believe it or not, this is where it all begins.
You see, the entire concept of interest, the whole shebang, it really just boils down to one critical difference. And that's the difference between getting something right now versus getting a promise you'll get it later. This is what separates a complete exchange from an incomplete one. Okay, let's really break this down. In a complete exchange, it's simple. I give you an apple, you give me $1. Boom, done. We walk away, nobody owes anyone anything. There's zero risk. But in an incomplete exchange, I give you an apple and you give me a promise to pay me that $1 next week. Well, all of a sudden, everything changes. I'm now exposed to risk. What if you don't pay me? And I have to wait. That delay and that uncertainty, that's the whole game.
So, to get me to agree to that deal, to take on the risk you might disappear, and to wait for my money, you're going to have to sweeten the pot. I'm not going to accept just a promise of $1 for my apple. I'm going to demand something extra, a premium. And right here, this little extra bit you pay me for the waiting and the risk, that is the tiny seed from which all interest grows.
Now, this idea doesn't just apply to simple trades. It applies to one of the biggest financial decisions any of us ever make. If you have some savings, you face a fundamental choice. How do you turn the money you have today into the money you'll need tomorrow?
You're really at a fork in the road here. You have two main paths you can take. You can go the direct route, which we'll call hoarding, or you can take the indirect route, investing. Both of these are just strategies to move today's savings into the future, but wow, do they work in completely different ways.
And this difference is absolutely critical. Hoarding is as straightforward as it gets. You stash cash under your mattress today so you can spend that exact same cash tomorrow. The money is your future spending power. Investing, though, is a totally different beast. You take your cash today and you buy something else with it. Could be stocks, bonds, whatever. And you're hoping to transform that asset back into more cash down the road. So this brings up a really important question. When you look at it this way, hoarding seems like a no-brainer, right? It's simple, it's safe. So why on earth would anyone choose the more complicated, riskier path of investing?
Well, the superpower of hoarding cash is its flexibility. Think about it. If you have a pile of cash saved up and your car breaks down, that money is right there, ready to go. You can change your life plans in an instant with zero cost or penalty because your money isn't tied up in anything.
And this is the central puzzle of finance, really. If hoarding is so safe, so flexible, if cash is king, why would you ever voluntarily give up the throne? What could possibly convince you to lock your money away and take a real risk with it?
The answer in one word is interest. An investment has to dangle a reward in front of you, a premium that's juicy enough to make you willing to part with the cozy safety of your cash. Interest is the price an investment pays to lure you away from hoarding. Without it, let's be honest, we'd all just keep our money under the mattress.
But here's where it gets really interesting. This price, this interest rate, it isn't just one single thing. It's actually a cocktail, a blend of 3 different premiums. Each one is designed to pay you back for a very specific sacrifice you're making.
That's right. Any interest rate you ever see on a mortgage, a car loan, a government bond is really just a mix of these 3 ingredients. You're getting paid for giving up liquidity, for taking on risk, and for the simple, sometimes painful act of waiting. So let's break them down one by one.
First up, the liquidity premium. This is basically the fee you charge for giving up that amazing flexibility of cash that we just talked about. Your money is now tied up, and if you need it back in a hurry, well, it might be tough or expensive to get it. So you demand to be paid for that inconvenience.
Now, how much you charge for this is, well, it's personal. If you're the kind of person who needs that safety net of cash, you're going to demand a high liquidity premium. And of course, it also depends on the investment. A stock you can sell in seconds has a very low premium compared to, say, a building that might take a year to sell.
Second, we have the risk premium, and this is the big one. This is your compensation for the very real and sometimes scary possibility that the whole thing could go wrong. The borrower might default, the company might go bankrupt, and you could end up with less than you started with, or even nothing at all. You have to get paid to take that chance.
And again, how much you demand is partly about you. If you're someone who hates risk, you'll need a huge premium to even consider it. But it also depends on the actual risk of the investment. A loan to a super stable government is going to have a tiny risk premium. An investment in a brand new startup, that's going to require a massive one to be worth your while.
And finally, there's the time premium. This is all about patience, or your lack of it. This premium pays you for being forced to wait longer than you'd like. Maybe your perfect plan is to use your savings in exactly 1 year. Well, if an investment makes you lock up that money for 5 years, it's messing with your plan. You need to be compensated for that delay.
The more impatient you are as a person, the higher the time premium you're going to demand. And it makes sense, right? The longer the delay, say waiting 10 years instead of 1, the more compensation you are going to require for that long wait.
Okay, so we've got millions of people out there, all with their own unique feelings about flexibility, risk, and patience. So how do all of these messy, personal, subjective preferences get boiled down into one single objective interest rate for the entire market? Well, let's look at a super simple market. Imagine a bond that promises to pay out 100 ounces of gold in 1 year. You've got buyers, and they all have a maximum price they're willing to pay today based on their own personal premiums. And you have sellers, who all have a minimum price they're willing to accept. And here's where the magic happens. Look at the price of 90. At that price, you've only got 4 buyers, but 6 people who want to sell. The price is too high, no deal. But watch what happens as the price drops. At 87 ounces, bam, we have a match. 5 people are willing to buy and 5 people are willing to sell. Supply equals demand. That becomes the market price.
So what does that price of 87 today for a promise of 100 in a year actually mean? Well, if you run the numbers, it implies a market interest rate of about 15%. Now, nobody decided on 15%. That number just emerged. It emerged from the collective tug of war between all the buyers and sellers, each weighing their own personal needs for liquidity, risk, and time.
So in the end, interest isn't some cold, abstract number cooked up in a lab. It is the market's price for a promise. It's the collective answer to deeply human questions about our need for flexibility, our fear of the unknown, and our own personal patience. It's the price of the future, being set right here today. And that leaves us with a final thought. Knowing this, how do you see the price of time and risk in your own life?